Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone. And today I have two very special guests with me who have a huge community of people who have lots and lots of questions, some of which I know you won't be able to answer today, but many you will be able to, and who have been working around the clock to help make sure that our students are well fed, are safe, and also enriched and educated. So we're going to dive in on what's happening in our school systems in response to everything that's happening in the community at large. And we have Superintendent Matt Crowley with us and High School Principal Jessica Callanan. Thank you for joining us. Matt, thank you for joining us. You must be exhausted. It has been, I am sure, a long and important set of meetings and discussions and work that your team is doing. Not to give you nightmares of going back in time and thinking of all this hard work, but give us a sense of what's happening behind the scenes.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes with the public. It's obviously been uncharted territory since early March, and March 12th was a Thursday when we made the decision to close down. We thought it was going to be a 2-week closure, which was then extended to 3 weeks by the governor on that Sunday. And then it obviously has been since extended to May 4th. And so we are, obviously, we can never replicate what happens every day in a school system, but we need to try to provide some supports to our families. And so I've heard the phrase over the last few weeks, we're putting Maslow over Bloom. So, we need to take care of basic human needs before we can get to higher level thinking. And so some of the things we've been doing and are continuing to do, we're feeding kids and families. So under the age of 18, any student is able to get free breakfast and lunch. There's 2 pickup points, the high school and the Alta Vesta. And starting today, we started school buses with 2 different routes dropping off food to our most economically disadvantaged areas. And so, if as this extends, we want to make sure that people have the food that they need that we can provide. The other thing.
Let me just interrupt you for 1 second, ask a question. First of all, thank you. I think adding the bus routes is a huge benefit for people who are trying to honor staying home or close to home as much as possible. In terms of the lunches, I have had some people ask me, do students need to be there? Can a guardian pick it up on their behalf? Does a student have to have an adult with them? What are some of the parameters for people who might take advantage of the lunch and breakfast service?
We'll feed anybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
That's the answer I was hoping you were going to give. Let's keep it simple, and thank you for doing that. Yeah. Please continue.
No, it's a good question. Let's see. Our custodians. I need to thank them. Once we vacated on the March, the Friday the 13th of all days.
Right.
They've been working nonstop to make sure our buildings are safe for when we return. And then on the technology, we've pushed out over 700 Chromebooks to students. So our tech department is led by Director Jen Judkins, who is new to Woburn this year, but has quickly made a name for herself and organized this distribution. We did it over 3 days at the Joyce Middle School. It was all done online. People were able to request a Chromebook, and then they queued up with a number in their dashboard, and then a Chromebook was delivered in through the passenger side window. And so, again, that's in anticipation of an extended learning absence that was done proactively. Again, this was done prior to Governor Baker's extension to May. So I'm pleased that we were able to do that for so many kids and families. We don't have enough devices for every single student in the district. So we did limit to 1 per family or 2 if they have 3 or more kids. But genuinely want to make sure kids have the access. We're also pushing out, I think it's Comcast has low price internet access. So we're trying to work with families if they don't have internet access at home. All that to say, our priority has been and continue will continue to be the social and emotional needs of our kids. We want to be realistic. This is a public health crisis. We want to support our kids and families and our teachers and staff and administrators as best we can. So 2 weeks ago, we created an extended learning plan, which provides choices for grades K-5 and then 6-8. So every week, families can go to our Woburn website, click on the extended learning, and they're called choice boards, and give opportunities for students and parents to work together on different projects for as long as they can or want to. There's a myriad of choice that's embedded there. It's created by teachers working in teams so that we believe collectively we're better than individually, particularly given the state of affairs right now. And so the third grade across Woburn creates choice board, and then it gets posted every Monday. And then at the middle schools, the choice boards are getting posted on Wednesdays. Ms. Callanan can speak to the high school because the high school is, a little different, obviously, because it's more subject specific. But and then teachers have been having Google Hangout meetings with kids, phone calls with kids. The caring, the community in Woburn is, it's always been amazing, and this is no different. If you're on Twitter, you can see a lot of these things that are happening. And so it's really, we're trying to support our students and go deeper with the skills and knowledge that they already have. We're not asking for new material to be taught at this point. We also, because, one of the things we're aware of is equity. Not all kids have a device at home, despite the fact that we've tried to push them out. And we want to make sure that we are not creating bigger gaps than already exist in this process. So
let me ask you a question about that. Given that we know that we will certainly be out of school until May 4th at best case scenario at this point, do you anticipate us moving to a role of instruction at some point? Maybe it's not mandatory, maybe it's not graded, but having something that looks more like a schedule. I know that there are a number of private schools who are doing that. I know teachers are doing some one-off types of situation with their classes that can. Will there more structure come, or should we be prepared to stay in this enrichment circle for the duration?
It's a tough question to answer. When we left, as I indicated earlier, we thought it was a 2-week closure. Yeah. And so we're doing the best we can, which we're looking to the state for guidance on a lot of these issues. And so Woburn is following the state recommendations at this time. I understand your question. We're not set up to be an online K-12 school. We're just not. And I need to be clear with you and with whomever. If we were, that would take years to set up, not 2 weeks. And so, we need to be realistic with what we can do and provide to our students and be humane to our staff during this crisis. So if the guidance shifts, we will adapt accordingly, but I don't have a timeline to answer that specifically.
Okay. And there are a number of people who were scheduled to have things like IEP reviews. They might have been in the middle of testing or planning to have tested. How should we be thinking about that? Is that on a hold and they'll be contacted when we'll be doing some of that via remote access at some point? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so good question. And so the guidelines there have changed. When we initially started, the timelines were frozen. They've since been unfrozen by the federal government, state government. So we are working, actually just got off a call with Maureen Ryan, who's the director of special education. We just sent out communication via email about a half hour ago to families, to everybody, but specifically to parents of students that have parents with students on IEPs. And she's in the process of creating a special education website, which will link to the Woburn Public Schools website. It's going to be very similar to the choice boards that we've done K-8. So that should be up and running on Monday as well. As far as virtual team meetings, we're in the process of trying to put that together. One of the things that we need to be conscious of is not all parents have access to technology. And so, we are looking at early next week to try to address some of those virtual meetings as possible as the federal guidelines are suggesting that we need to do to provide FAPE to our students.
Okay. What's the acronym stand for?
Oh, free and appropriate education.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It sounded like vape for a minute, and I
Oh,
know
no,
that's
no.
not what you meant, but
No,
I
no,
didn't want
no.
people to mishear that. So thank you for clarifying. I know these are difficult times. One of the things that I've heard a lot of parents, I've heard full spectrum of things, right? I've heard people who are trying very much to, in their own ways at home, create a structured curriculum for their students to sort of homeschool as best they can using some of the choice boards and other programs and activities. I've heard other family members who don't have anybody home to do that, or feel overwhelmed by it, or students are not in a mindset being able to do that. But across all of those spectrums, one of the big things that keeps coming up is even if we decide to sort of wash out this year, we're going to have to pick up again next year. And what are things that we can do as individual students on our own, or parents helping students, to limit the amount of regression that might happen for students as they are getting ready to move up and to do new things. And I know there's no perfect answer, but if there's advice that you can give us for those who are trying to help our students through this, what things can we do?
Well, I think, first of all, having some type of structure routine at home has been helpful. I have kids at home too. And so I don't want them sleeping all day and up all night playing Xbox and whatever else they would do. So, it's a real thing. So, but the other thing that I want to highlight is that it's not everything is online. So there's activities that you can do not online. You can cook. You can, go for a walk, plant gardens. There's jumping jack challenges. There's things that do not have to occur online. In my own family, we're taking turns. Everyone's cooking dinner one night. They have to figure out the menu. I just share that because it kind of distributes it's a new world we're in, and it's a new thing. I'm kind of curious what my teenage boys will come up with.
We have a similar thing, but I'm not brave enough to require all of them to cook me dinner. But there's like a chart of things that need to get done today. And you pick one or two of those things, and you can't pick the same thing the next day. So everybody can't take the easy one all the time. Yeah. But certainly we're all trying to find ways to help each other out and family. And I think I've heard you say this before and others, that we're not expecting parents to become teachers, and we need to let ourselves off the hook a little bit. If that math worksheet isn't happening and your student doesn't understand it and you're not finding a way to explain it, that's okay, right?
That's absolutely right. I really don't want parents to be overwhelmed by this. That's the sort of the nature of the choice boards. Yeah. But teachers are available via email or Hangout to answer those questions. So it's sort of a really nice opportunity for parents and teachers and students to kind of triangulate to problem solve. But we're really not trying to create any extra stress on families given the crisis that we're in.
Great. Thank you so much. I am going to invite Principal Callahan to join me in a moment to talk about the high school. Anything else that you'd like to add? Maybe something you talked about the school committee meeting last night, or anything else that you think we should know?
Stay home.
Yeah.
Care for each other, be kind. And, we're lucky to be in Woburn. People are listening, and the school committee, the city council, Mayor Galvin, everyone's been very supportive, but we need to heed the advice of the public health officials and stay home and take care of ourselves so we can get through it together.
Great. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Principal Callahan, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
High school students are a whole nother ball of wax. I have I have raised 4 young adults, one of which is a senior in high school right now, and I'm going to ask you the question that is burning in every senior's mind. Intellectually, I think they understand they're probably not going to be held back and stopped from graduating on time, but everybody has a little bit of nerves around this. What can we tell seniors right now about what's likely to happen?
I do think it's difficult to live with uncertainty, for anyone, and our high school seniors, they have so much riding on the end of their senior year. So the guidance that I have been providing to my department leaders and teachers is that we're working very hard to make sure that students have every opportunity, all students, 9 through 12, to make up assignments that they may have missed or not done very well up to March 15th, which was the last day we were essentially in session. And then I'm working in concert with Dr. Crowley and the district leadership to figure out what that's going to look like in terms of grades. And, I think that there are many scenarios that could play out, taking our lead from the governor, who takes his from the federal government, of course, about when we return. So best case scenario would be May 4th. And in that case, if all of the restrictions are lifted and we can meet and we can gather in large groups, then we would move forward with senior activities as they were previously scheduled. Obviously, there's some adjustment that will have to happen in terms of curriculum, and my teachers are already starting to wrap their heads around that, and what that means this year, but also what that means next year for students that are still enrolled in high school. I am not going to allow any senior that was on track to graduate to not graduate. We're working very, very closely with both my clinical team and my curriculum content specific teachers and special ed liaisons to make sure that every student has connectivity, has been reached out to, and has means to access their education. And so that is something I can guarantee as long as students are willing to work with us and we give them an opportunity to do so through access and equity. We will do that. And we are very cognizant of the fact that, there are people that are being laid off, and sometimes our students may be an income that's very important in that household. And so I think a word that we're hearing a lot is the opportunities that we're providing are asynchronous, meaning that students and parents can engage in them when they can. And that I think is really important for our teachers as well, because they're having to provide instruction at home with their families. And as we all know, we all have, most of us have kids at home, or maybe a parent that we're caring for or something like that. So, there's just a lot of things to take into consideration, and I don't think it's perfect. I echo Dr. Crowley's statement, that we're learning as we go. It's out of necessity, we have to, and as something presents itself as a problem, we're addressing it.
And for students who were taking AP classes, obviously that process has been disrupted, and typically they would take an exam. Some of them might take some credit from college should they be choosing to go to college for that. Have we gotten any guidance from the educational authorities around what happens with AP?
So the College Board, who runs the advanced placement testing and examination and approves your syllabi and all of those things for AP classes, has been incredibly clear and communicative with schools about what that will look like. So we do have the benefit in Woburn that any student enrolled in an AP class, we do expect them to take the AP exam in a regular year because the city pays for that. And so all of those students are registered to still take their AP exam. And so the College Board has said that all AP exams will be offered online. They haven't released the dates yet. There are going to be 2 different dates, I think, for each exam. They'll be 45 minutes in length, and students can take them at home, which is unprecedented, to say the least. And many universities are already coming out with different policies in terms of subject-specific requirements and things like that, waiving things, even things like the SAT for next year for our current juniors. So I see that as a great opportunity for our students, and none of the curriculum is going to be tested on for anything that is beyond March 1st. So basically my AP teachers are doubling back and providing reinforcement lessons on any of those subjects that the College Board has put out there that will be covered. And if any students go to the College Board website, there are YouTube videos of lessons, there are practice tests, there are all sorts of resources on the College Board website.
Thank you. That's super helpful. One of the things that is a challenge for high school students or parents or helpers or whatever the scenarios we may all be finding ourselves in is that that house guest that's stuck staying with you that we thought was going to leave after, a week and is now here for many weeks, whatever those weird scenarios we find ourselves in. I feel fairly confident being able to help my first grader with some basic math, or maybe my, fifth grader read a passage and write a paragraph. I'm really unprepared to help remember all my statistics training and help my high school student learn and understand something they might be struggling with, right? As an example. What level of instruction help for students who are trying to, honor the intention of doing some of the enrichment exercises, trying to keep up with some of the schoolwork, maybe don't have to worry about their grades catching up, but are trying to stay fresh with things? How can they be getting helped, and can we expect from our educators in terms of supporting those students who really need their specialized instruction?
Sure. Great question. So there is a district extended learning plan that defines the responsibilities for the expectations and responsibilities for all of our teachers. We are all still working, but what that looks like when we're home obviously is not something any of us are used to. My teachers, every staff member, every faculty member will have an out of office message on for basically 22 hours a day, Monday through Friday, that when a student contacts them or a parent, it will shoot them an automatic message back to say, these are the hours that I will be actively online 2 hours a day. And so they might be 2 hours together, 2 hours separate. It does not mean that teachers are not answering and responding to things outside of that time. And obviously in all of those specific content areas, from statistics and calculus to chemistry and AP Lit, and so our teachers are available, they're willing to help. And I will just say that it's a lot to kind of wrangle at the high school level because you just have a lot of people. I tell people sometimes, running a high school, I probably have 2,000 people that I'm overseeing, and that's not counting families, just our students and faculty, that you're trying to get everybody rowing in the same direction. So I am addressing questions as they come up. And I think students should definitely reach out to their teachers if they have questions about the enrichment activities that are sent out, or if they want additional work. Teachers are ready and willing. And I think really we're feeling a little bit handcuffed in the beginning when we didn't really have a clear idea about what this extended learning plan was going to look like. And now I think have a sense of relief collectively to move forward in the work that we're doing to try to help students, even if we don't know what that's going to look like yet in terms of grading.
I have heard a number of times, a teacher said, don't worry about it, you don't have to do the work, which is the true and probably fair answer. But sometimes I know that can be kind of hard for someone who is looking to learn the material and is struggling with it. At this point, I think the hours are relatively new, correct?
Yes, that was new as of this week. Yep.
So my expectation is that would decrease as we have some sort of dedicated time that teachers will be available to help students learn material and things like that.
That what would decrease?
The don't worry about it, you don't have to do it
yeah.
kind of answers, and the more, sort of moving more towards instruction guidance. Or is that an unfair expectation?
I think that districts are being asked to be very, very responsive in terms of the information that we're getting from the state level. And right now the state guidance, the state guidance is that, sorry, I had something in front of your face for a second, was that we were focusing solely on enrichment, and that means covering topics that were already covered, going deeper into those topics. And so that's what the enrichment plans would be following. Whether that changes, and then whether we change as a district will solely be dependent upon Dr. Crowley's communication at the state level.
Great, thank you. I think there's a lot of high school students who are getting a little stir crazy right there. Some of them are having to work, some of them are home and not. I hear lots of comments and statements, probably not representative of the vast majority of students, but kids hanging out together, kids in groups doing things. I don't think it's happening quite as much as it feels like it's happening, because we hear about it when it does. But what advice do you want to pass along to your students as we go through this difficult time for everybody?
Well, I do think, and I've had pretty difficult conversations with people, my own family included, extended and immediate, that the work that we do to socially distance or physically distance, I think is the new adopted term, will help us collectively. So it'll help us as a state. And I understand that a lot of youth do not feel directly threatened by the COVID-19 virus, but other people in their lives could be. And so, whether it is you feel motivated to help others, or in your mind, the more that we socially distance and physically distance, I think hopefully that will be the quicker that we're back to normalcy. And so we can see that in other countries, some of which have handled it well and some of which have not. And we can look to those to see kind of what's in store for us depending upon how we carry ourselves. And so I do think that it's very, very important for people to take care of their physical, social, and emotional needs. You do need to have a routine. You do need to think about your own well-being. You can feel bad, it's like there's a grieving process, I think, especially for high school seniors who think, possibly that we might not be back to school. That's very sad. And you got to acknowledge that, but at the same time, put a structure in place. And it's not a joke, and if people don't know someone that's been impacted by this directly yet, you will. And it's not a hoax, it's not fake. And I think we need to take the recommendations very seriously. And, I want to say a special thanks to our first responders, as well as those that are working in grocery stores and different service industries and hospitals that are still carrying out their daily business to their own detriment, maybe, and so I think we just need to be respectful of others and really care about the greater humanity in Woburn, but everywhere, and do the right thing.
Yeah, I love that. And we have all, I think most of us who are adults, or certainly people of my age, have experienced something in their life that has been traumatic, difficult, a time when the community needed to come together. But I've certainly never seen anything at this global pandemic scale ever. I hope never to again. No, by the way, nobody in my house is listening to this advice, just to be clear, but I've encouraged my students to, journal a little bit, to write down what they're thinking and feeling and what's happening today. And there's no way that any of them are going to write it down in the way that I think of, but they are documenting things in Facebook, they don't use Facebook, but Snapchat and other sort of mediums that they do use. And I think it'll be a really interesting opportunity to look back over time and see how all of us came together as a community. So good, wise advice for our students to take it seriously, to help where we can, to, take responsibility for their actions. Certainly high school students are old enough to understand and learn about the consequences of not following protocol. Good news is the protocol works. It helps and reduces or slows the spread. It may not eliminate people you love from being sick, but it helps the community be able to serve them. So thank you for joining me today. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to let the community know?
No, just that I think I can speak for the school and that we really miss the students and miss being with them, for better, for worse, what we go through the course of a year, that, everybody, I think, would look forward to being back in school right now, which isn't something that we say every single day, but it really makes you, when something of this magnitude happens, it really makes you understand what's important. You know, and I do care about the job that I do every day. And I say that to people, and I think kids think it's a joke, but it isn't. And I think that it's really meaningful. And I'm glad that I'm still in an occupation, you know, that can help others. And, you know, I look forward to the day that we can see everybody back at school.
I love it. One last little thing before I let everybody go. The Tanner Closet has traditionally helped families with food and clothing and things like that. I know there's a lot of organizations that are hoping right now. Are you taking requests or donations for the Tanner Closet, or should those needs be redirected to one of the other groups for now?
So we have been, I know Dr. Crowley's been on calls with this, but so is my assistant principal, Meg Patrici, just to protect our own staff. That has transitioned to city organizations, and Dr. Crowley can probably correct me on this, but the food pantry is one of them, and there are a couple of others, but they can reach out to those organizations. They're still up and running, and I know they've expanded their hours and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. We did have guests on from Food Pantry and SCI, Social Capital Inc. Serve Group, which are absolutely taking that role. I just wanted to be clear. I've had a few people sort of tag people around the Tanner Closet, and so for this time, which makes complete sense, we're, you know, use the other resources that are ramped up and operating right now, and let's make sure everybody gets what they need.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for both of your time joining me today. Thank you, Woburn, for tuning in. There are no easy answers in a scenario like this. No one can predict exactly what will happen next week or next month, but I know and feel confident in all the wonderful folks who have been working with us that we are in this together, and we have a lot of incredible people, both formally in things like our school system and in city roles, but also volunteers and community groups. And also just neighbors responding to needs. So I strongly recommend everybody stay informed, stay connected, and if you have questions about the school system, let's make sure to funnel those to the right places and continue to help each other out. Thanks for joining us.